So this project has two main features, the natural language code search feature as well as the pattern analyzer. So let's first dive into the natural language code search feature. So for this search, there's multiple ways that we can search for the code on GitHub. There's the code search, the user search, as well as the repository search. So let's start with the code search. So here I'm asking the large language model to help me find a code that configures type ORM to interact with the database in this Next.js framework. So you can see here how our query is actually transformed to the GitHub syntax. And you can see the language TypeScript is actually inferred because, as you can see here, TypeScript is added based on a common association with Next.js. And that's indeed true because Next.js is mainly TypeScript based. And we can see all the code being found here. We can click show more code, or we can view the code on GitHub as well. You can also scroll. So let's try another example of finding Spring Boot code where there's a JWT in cookie implementation. So let's try. Yep, so here you can see that the language Java is actually inferred as well because Spring Boot is based on Java. And you can see how the large language model actually interpreted it. So you can see here, these are the relevant codes. Makes sense. Okay. So now we can also do a user search. So let's say we want to find a user called Vision Media. Here you go. So the GitHub syntax would be user semicolon colon Vision Media. Now you can see this user actually has multiple repositories. The most popular being 7.6k stars. You can click view on GitHub as well. We can search by his repo name as well, or mastering node here. So sort by stars, languages as well. Now we have the last feature, which is to do a repo search specifically. So here I'm trying to find a repository DevOps exercises by a specific individual. And we can see that the syntax being transformed, and we can find that specific repository here. So by the user specified and the repository name. And that brings us to the end of the first feature. Next is the pattern analyzer. So this pattern analyzer is actually useful for us to find related codes based on, let's say, a documentation. So if I'm surfing the web for row guard documentation in Next.js, they do give us the template code, but most of the time it's bare bones and quite skeleton. So there's not much for us to actually see the real life context. So perhaps we can add this code in this editor here. We can also do the filtering, but more on that later. I can click find similar implementations. So here you can see that this was our input code on the left, as shown before, and our code that we have found on the right. We can see that we can filter through the different code being found. This is a score of 90 out of 100. And again, this scoring is done by the large language model. This one in particular has 65, which is quite bad. We can also see the repository details as shown. 159 stars for the repository that contains this code. But if you want to find this code in specific, we can actually click here, view on GitHub. So this was the exact code, the repository. Okay. Oh, then you can see the implementation insights. So this is also done by the large language model. You can see the technical analysis, the best practices, as well as the improvement areas. We can go through each code being found, they have actually been subjected to analysis by the large language model. And we can actually go back here. So let's try out the filters. Let's say I want to find by a specific by specific user, unusual code org. And click find similar implementations. So for the same code, we see that there's only one result.